right, my friends, you good people out there in strong inspirations land, you nice folks, you conscious folks, you people who help other people. How about that? Y'all people, y'all know who I am. I'm Anthony Brogdon. I'm a guy who, man, I'm telling you, this thing has really blown up. I hit over 500 subscribers a couple of days ago. Now I think I'm at 522. I want 5,000 by the end of the year. I want 5,000 by the end of the year. That's a lofty goal. That's 10 times more than I got. And all I need you to do is hit the subscribe button. It's free. I don't ask no information. It don't do nothing but just let me know you love me. Because I love you. I do, man. Y'all watching me. I came up with this idea off the cuff. Because you see, what happened is I'm a filmmaker and an author, and I talk about Black history, right? And then the pandemic kind of cut all all my book signings and my movie showings out, and I had to come up with something, and I came up with this. That's how God leads you. He led me to do this so that I could help share this information, and my help is to find people like my guest today. That's my help. And then I only try to do a couple things, and that is ask questions. Couple more things before I have my man come on. Watch this. I got a festival I'm doing. I'm doing a festival in Quindaro, Kansas. The slaves walked across the water. They was mad and had enough of that stuff, that injustice. Walked across the water, the Mississippi River, from Mississippi to Quindaro when it froze, and started their own town and gathered and told them white folks, don't come over here because we ain't having it. And they didn't. And so I want to see the spot. I want to see where they, how they did that. And I want you to watch it with me. So I'm gonna put a festival together, Memorial Day weekend 2022. That's May 27th, 28th, 29th. Put it on your calendar. You fly into Kansas City, Kansas, and then you drive about 20 minutes. And then Friday night, we're gonna have a party in a barn. So wear your dusty blue jeans. We're gonna drink some moonshine, we're gonna drink some sweet tea, we're gonna eat some good food, we're gonna party and dance and have a good solid time. Saturday, we're gonna take tours of the city, and we're gonna have a picnic. And we're gonna have a bonfire. We're gonna sit up late enough to watch them stars, see if we can find the North Star. How about that? And then on Sunday, we're gonna have a church service where we're gonna have some of the local ministers. And I know they all be talking, I wanna get more time. Now everybody get the same amount of time to share a word. And we're gonna pour libations, and then we can leave. You can leave if you do, or you don't, you don't. But I mean, that's the kind of the end of the show. It's gonna be one price. I don't know what it is. We got the details. We're gonna have some local bands. How about this? I heard that famous lady, actress Monet, I think it is. She from there. Her family from Quindaro. I'm gonna invite her, and if she see this show, sister, I want you to come through. You from Quindaro, the cute girl that be in the movies and things. She sing too. I heard she from Quindaro. We're gonna invite some other people, some bands and stuff like that. Follow me on Twitter at A Strong Dream. I'm tweeting all the time. I'll be bike riding and I'm tweeting. Driving down the street, I sometimes tweet while I'm driving. I hope I don't have no accident. I wait till I get to the light. How about this? Follow me on Instagram at A Strong 11. Like my Facebook pages, Business in the Black, Black History Then and Now, which is a huge one, and Black Business Book. They're my Facebook pages. How about this? So hit the subscribe button, like this video. My man gonna put it down on you. Watch, he's sitting there patiently. Said he was on time, man. This guy was on time. He gonna put it down on you. Hit the notifications bell and tell somebody about Strong Inspiration. Help me reach 5,000. It'll be an incredible feat, but not unbelievable. It's not a miracle. You just do that for me. The other things I want you to do on my own personal tip is, as you know, I'm a filmmaker, and I got this documentary out, Business in the Black, the rise of Black business in America from 1800 to 1960. It starts with a guy, he starts and ends it. He's 101 years old in my film, and I got other people in their high 90s sharing Black history stories on the rise of Black business in America. It's streaming on Amazon, and I'm now in the process of putting it up on Tubi and Hulu and all them other platforms. I got a guy helping me do it. I want you to watch my movie, please. The other thing is, as you might know, I wrote a book. Come on, man, y'all can tell I'm serious. I wrote a book. I think it's gonna be a bestseller. It's too much information in here not to be. But bestsellers, defined by how many books you sell. That's what that is. I don't care about that title. I just want you to read it and share this information with somebody else. Over 200 amazing facts. How about this? I tell you all the ways slaves got their freedom. And one of the ways we don't usually hear about, there were some slaves who sued. They said, man, I'm taking you to court to let me go, and won. It's in my book, over 200 facts. I don't give you no commentary. I just give you the fact. And if you know everything in my book, I give your money back. You that tight, you know all these, I give your money back. And every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. The schools don't, I'm sure I wasn't taught this information because my teacher might not have known it, or I was asleep. I don't know which one, but I want you to get my book, please. I need to sell a bunch of these because I need a bunch of people to know this stuff. All right. And my book is available on my website. Check me out. Businessintheblack.net is the website. Same thing as the movie, but .net, businessintheblack.net. You, my friends, you hear me use this word strong a lot. And I it's my favorite word in the world. I got strong on everything. And strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. That's my introduction to the brother that's on my channel. He's a strong man. Come on and introduce yourself. Let's get it on.
My name is Dr. Anthony Dixon. I am a historian in the African diaspora.
Love it. Yeah, and hold on, man. I got to talk about you for a second. You a doctor? You a PhD doctor?
Yes, sir.
I love it, man. Where'd you go to school?
Indiana University.
And you wrote one of them big dissertations and everything.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, I love it, man. Where you from? Where you from? Where'd you go before that?
I'm originally from Fort Valley, Georgia, and I obtained my bachelor and master's from Florida A&M University.
From the HBCU?
Yes, sir. I'm HBCU.
Yes, I love it. And how about this? So the small town you went to, you was one of the smartest kids in your class, wasn't you?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I just worked hard and achieved.
Now, how did you, I mean, you come from a small town. You got a good education in that school system?
Yes, I did. I started out at an HBCU developmental school, and then I matriculated through public school. And the good thing about it, I guess, is that the town that I'm from was predominantly Black. So I had all the cultural reinforcements that I needed to go on to matriculate to an HBCU.
Oh, okay, how about this? Somebody said something to you that clicked. Maybe it might have been your parents or something, but somebody said something to you in that Black town that, hey man, we see talent in you, right?
It was my parents. My parents instilled education. They're educators themselves. My mother was a school principal and school board, ultimately school board member. My father is a professor at another HBCU, Fort Valley State University.
I'm familiar with it. So you had to do good. And if you didn't, you got a whooping. you brought anything less than a B, you got a whooping for that, I'm sure.
Well, I didn't get a whooping, but I was definitely encouraged to do good.
Yeah, man. So now, how about this? Is there Black history in your town?
In where I'm from originally?
Yes.
Yes, there's an HBCU there, so there's strong Black roots and good Black history there.
Was there slavery and a slave plantation in your town?
Yes, there was slavery around it. I grew up just outside of Macon, Georgia, which was a strong, of course, plantation society.
But did you know that then, and you saw it? Were you and were you scared to go to Macon and something like that? Macon might be a little too tough or whatever.
No, I wasn't afraid to go to Macon. It was all rural, considered rural surroundings. Macon was the largest city, so you had to go to Macon to get some of the things necessity.
I got you.
The town I grew up in.
Okay, how about this? Where was the white people near you?
On the other side of the tracks. That's the thing about where I'm from. I went to school in the high school in the 80s, yet we still went to a segregated prom. So everything was still pretty much segregated growing up in Fort Valley, Georgia.
Wow. No, but your school was integrated or segregated?
The school was integrated, but you could tell blacks were on one side of the lunchroom, whites were on the other. We very rarely did anything integrated on a social level.
Really? Did y'all have to sit in the back of the room in the classroom and that kind of thing? Was it that bad?
Oh, no, it wasn't that bad. We were socially segregated. We did it by choice. That was just how we were. Like I said, the city that I grew up in is predominantly Black. So whites themselves kind of segregated themselves away because we were in a predominantly Black city.
Okay, but you said they were on the other side of the railroad tracks. What was the name of the town that they were in?
Oh, it was the same town. Fort Valley is just the railroad track went right down the middle of the town, and most whites lived on one side of the railroad track, and most blacks lived on the other side.
I got you. Did you go on their side of town for any reason?
Yes, downtown was on their side of the tracks.
How about this, everybody? And y'all know I give it to you straight, no chasing. This is a good question. This is a question right here, and I even used the word. Were you ever called a nigger?
Yes, I recall being called that early on in my childhood. I guess I was about 8 or 9.
What did you do?
I was a child. I didn't do anything. I didn't fight back or anything.
Did you? And then growing up, did you see KKK?
No, that's the one thing. I never personally saw the Klan.
Did you know there were stores you couldn't go into and that kind of thing? They had to go through the back door?
Well, it wasn't during my time.
Yeah.
I knew of these stories from my mother. My mother participated in the civil rights movement. She participated in sit-ins and things of that nature.
Okay, since you brought up your mother and your father, couple more questions, if you don't mind. This is good stuff right here. How did they get an education and be so smart to go to college and be who they were? Where did they go?
They went to Fort Valley State. They went to the HBCU. My father grew up about 40 minutes outside of Milledgeville, in a city called outside of a city called Milledgeville, Georgia, and he was afforded the ability to go to Fort Valley State. My uncle went there first, and then my father followed my uncle to Fort Valley State University, and so they met at HBCUs. I have, like I said, I have a very strong HBCU background. Many family members are from various HBCUs. We have at least 7 or 8 HBCUs in the family.
I love it. So somewhere even further along the line, somebody told their kids that they're gonna get an education. The great-great-grandfather who was a slave, he said, y'all got to get an education.
Yes, my grandmother and grandfather on my father's side made sure that their children were educated. My grandmother on my maternal side made sure that all of her kids got an education.
That improves your wealth in life, doesn't it?
Yes, I agree. It improves your chances in life, your standing in terms of well-being.
And then your mom was on the school board, so she was doing what she could on top of that to make sure that the education was equitable.
Yes.
One more question. Did the teachers try to do something to hold you back, seeing that how smart you were? Wouldn't let you ask questions and all that kind of thing?
No, like I said, I was blessed to be in a town that was predominantly Black, so I was nurtured quite well.
But the school you went to had white teachers or all Black teachers?
They had white teachers, but there were enough Blacks there for cultural reinforcement.
I got you. I love it. Now, the one thing that you said that we were going to talk about is Black Seminole Indians. What are you one?
No, I'm not a Black Seminole. I came across this story researching resistance to slavery and oppression, and I came across this wonderful story of group of Blacks who fought against their enslavement and re-enslavement in some cases, to the point where they actually won their freedom. And when we look at this story, we actually have to look at the Second Seminole War, which goes down in the annals of history as a Native American war. But when we look at it, technically look at it and look at the number of Blacks that were involved in it, it was a slave rebellion.
So what's the story? Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, our story starts actually in the 17th century with the competition between the Spanish and the English.
Okay, now hold on. 17th century is what? 1600 something, right?
1600s, yes.
Okay.
The Spanish did not like the fact that the English were encroaching plantation society in La Florida.
Which is where?
Which is basically Florida.
Okay.
At that time, Florida, the Spanish had rights to Florida, which was basically supposed to be the East Coast. But of course, the English come in what is now the Virginia and Tidewater region, Jamestown, Virginia. And so competition begins. And so the Spanish realized that the only way that they're going to survive is by the number of African enslaved individuals they bring in, because plantation society was how they were thoroughly invested. Therefore, the Spanish basically put out an edict in 1693 that said any African that ran away from the English plantation society could come down into Florida and live for free.
Okay, hold on, let me stop here. They put out a what now?
It's called an edict.
What was it though? Was it a telegraph or putting in an ad in the newspaper? What is it?
No, it was just a written law. It was a
Okay.
written law that said if Spanish people saw any runaway Africans that came down from Florida, they realized that they were a runaway from the English plantation system, that they were not to be enslaved and that they were to live free in Florida.
I love it.
It started an influx of Africans coming down into Florida, and they began to live in two different ways. They were given the ability to eke out their own existence in Florida. They can live in the wilderness and eke out their own existence and kind of rough it out however they saw fit, or they could come under Spanish authority at a fort just outside of St. Augustine, Florida, called Fort Mose.
Right.
And this lasted for a period throughout the 18th century.
So in the 1700s.
Yes, in the 1700s,
right,
they were eking out their own existence, living in Florida for free.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Where did most of the slaves run from to get to Florida? They had to run from close nearby, right?
They were out of the Carolinas. Once the Carolinas developed in low country, they were primarily out of what we call low country.
Right. How did they get there? They had to run and horse and buggy, a combination of both, whatever. There was an underground railroad system to get them there.
They ran through the wilderness, and they ran until they found the St. Johns River. And the St. Johns River brought them down into Florida. Now, it's funny you say that the Underground Railroad, because we now realize that the first Underground Railroad did come south. It came to Florida.
Okay. Okay. Was there a Harriet Tubman type person helping guide them along the way, or there's some names of people, underground conductors?
No, these people were on their own, so to speak, in garnering their way down to Florida. Once, as time passed and went on, of course, the word had gotten out that you could live in Florida,
right,
as a free person.
Right.
But it was on them to garner their own way down into Florida.
Okay, how about this question? How did they know which direction to go? I mean, like, you know, when they say that there was the North Star that got them up north, was there something like that?
No, they only told by word of mouth and through customs that the way to freedom was south.
Okay, all right. So what happens once they got there?
Well, as time goes on, they're beginning to intermingle with Native Americans who are also trying to escape plantation society. They're trying to get away from the English as well. And so they start beginning to come into Florida as well. And so what happens is there's a schism within the Creek Nation in present-day Alabama. The Southern Creeks began to work with the English, who are now in present-day Georgia. And so they began to buy and trade and sell slaves, enslaved Africans.
The Creeks were?
The Creeks, yes, the Southern Creeks.
I got you.
The Northern Creeks that lived in Northern Alabama questioned them. They were like, what are you doing? We take slaves as part of warfare. We may take women and children to keep our numbers up, but we don't enslave individuals as such. And we certainly don't keep them and tell them that their children and their children's children are our slaves as well.
Okay.
What are you doing? So there's this great schism between the Creek Nation. the northern Creeks pushed their way down through on the Alabama-Georgia line, down through the southern Creeks, and they come into Florida.
Okay.
And when they come into Florida, they create a homogenized group with all the other smaller groups of Native Americans that are trying to get away from plantation society, and they become known as the Seminoles.
I got you. I got you.
And so by the time we get to the 1750s, they are recognized by both the English and the Spanish. Now,
how many of them is it, do they think?
It's hard to put an exact number on it in the earlier days, but it immediately rises into the thousands.
Okay.
As time goes on.
Okay.
Now, what happens is that the Seminoles realize that their existence is also tied to how the African presence is going as well, that they are fighting for their freedom as well.
Okay.
They're fighting against plantation society. So it becomes that enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so they began to cohabitate together. They go into a recognized relationship.
What town are they in at this point, mostly? St. Augustine?
No, they're mostly on because the English are invading St. Augustine, and they're having trouble on the East Coast, and now it's well known, that runaways are trying to get to the St. John's River. And so and plantation society is moving into Georgia along the coast into Savannah and Brunswick. So they are pushed out westward, and they move out west and come down into Florida that way.
I got you.
And so Tallahassee and Pensacola area, the Tallahassee to Pensacola area becomes highly, well, there are actually more Native Americans and blacks in that area than whites.
I got
Most
you.
whites on the East Coast at that time. So by the time we get to the late 1700s, the United States, of course, you have the American Revolution. And during the War of 1812, we see a pivotal change there. During the War of 1812, there's another war, smaller war, that takes place in and around the Gulf Coast. It's called the Patriots' War. Most people, when they think about port cities, most people think about New York, Boston,
right,
and Charleston. But in actuality, during the early 1800s, the more important ports in terms for business and commerce were actually the ports between Tampa, Panama City, Pensacola, Mobile, Biloxi, and New Orleans.
Okay.
Because these were the ports that were still in heavy transit to the Caribbean, which was still producing a lot of the sugar and other goods that the Europeans were buying.
Okay.
So there was a war over these ports. And in that war, the English decided to use Native Americans and these runaway blacks to help them. And so what happens is, when the English are pushed out, they leave the blacks a fort. It's called Negro Fort. It's about 60 miles outside of Tallahassee, along the Apalachicola River.
Okay. Now, hold on. You said the English decided, but I thought it was the Spanish that helped, that initially told the blacks come down.
Exactly. The Spanish are weak at best at this point. That's the funny thing about it. We're in Florida, but the United States and the British are fighting in Florida over land that isn't even theirs.
Okay.
That's the issue, that the Spanish are technically the owners of the land, but they are weak at best. They're only really collecting taxes.
Okay.
They are the British and the Americans actually run the land.
Okay.
And so when the British and the the British and the United States have their war, the Second War, the War of 1812, they are fighting over these ports because this is the last land here, the Florida and the frontier of Florida and the Gulf Coast.
Right.
Last areas that the English have some type of control.
Right.
And so in order to defeat the Americans, the British actually go into an agreement with Native Americans and these runaway blacks.
Right.
But of course, as we know, the United States prevails. There isn't really a clear winner in the War of 1812, but because they held the British off, they were declared the winner. And so they were pushed out of the area.
Right. The British were.
The British were.
Right.
When they were pushed out of the area, because they appreciated what the blacks and the Native Americans had done, they left the blacks a fort. Now, this sent shockwaves throughout plantation society. This sent shockwaves through Alabama, Georgia, the eastern part of Florida, the Carolinas, and what was beginning to become Tennessee.
Okay.
Because, of course, a fort meant that you were on your way to having a colony. A colony meant that you were on your way to establishing yourself in the area. And
now, what was the fort name? Was that wasn't Fort Mose, though, was it?
No, this was called the Negro Fort.
The Negro Fort.
Yep, that is what it was called. Negro
Did they
Fort.
have a black guy that was the head man of the fort?
Yes, there were black leaders there. And Native Americans actually lived in and around it. And so what happens is that plantation society sent word to Andrew Jackson, who's in New Orleans. And after he wins the Battle of New Orleans, they tell Andrew Jackson, you can't stop there. You have to go on. You have to destroy this fort. So without word from the United States government, without permission, he comes into La Florida, he comes into Florida, and he destroys the Negro Fort. And this is what we say begins the First Seminole War.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop you there. First of all, the United States told the blacks y'all could have that fort.
No, they did not. The United States did not know anything about it because you have to understand it's still technically, Florida still technically belonged to the Spanish.
So the Spanish said the blacks y'all could have the fort.
Yes.
Oh, and then the United States told Andrew Jackson, go in there and get the fort from the black people.
No, not the United States. Plantation owners.
Oh, now, okay, everybody, we coming in, yes. Them racists was mad.
Exactly, that because they saw that as a direct threat. They said as long as blacks knew that there was a colony of blacks
I see
in Florida, they would always run away. So plantation society was being threatened.
I see. Okay, now I'm up to stuff. Okay, keep going. I got you.
All right. So Andrew Jackson comes into Florida and he destroys the fort. And as historians, we say, some historians, and we're beginning to now lean more towards it, that when he destroys this fort, he begins the First Seminole War. And so what he does is he pushes the blacks and the Native Americans out of the area,
Right.
out of Tallahassee and South Georgia and
Right.
South Alabama area, and he pushes them down into the Tampa region, down into Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
And then a lot of that area, particularly over going toward Orlando, is uninhabitable. So the blacks and the Native Americans, they start to come back. They come back into the North Florida.
Okay.
At the end of the first Seminole War, it ends in December, around December 1818. The United States then signs a treaty with Spain, and Spain cedes Florida over to the United States, and Florida becomes a U.S. territory.
Okay.
So now the United States has the ability to do whatever they want to the Native Americans and to those blacks living free in Florida.
I got you. Okay.
And so we start seeing an all-out assault on those people. Now, when they return to North Florida, they resume fighting and skirmishing again. And it isn't until the 1830s that they go into another war. It is called the Second Seminole War.
Okay.
We hear a lot about Geronimo and Sitting Bull and all those others, Chief Joseph, but it is actually the Seminoles and the Black Seminoles, because after the Seminole War, they began to go into a formal agreement. So we start calling them Maroon Societies, and we start calling them Black Seminoles.
Okay.
And so they began to go into a formalized society in which they fight the United States government again in the longest, deadliest, and costliest war fought, Native American war fought against the United States.
Now, where is this mostly taking place at, this war?
In Florida.
I mean, but what part? In the northern part, right?
Yes, this is primarily taking place in northern Florida.
Okay.
And it goes down as far, well, it covers the whole state because they're running all over the state fighting guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
But it mainly takes place in North Florida.
Okay.
Now, here's a key aspect. Even the general, who was named General Thomas Jessup, he writes a letter to the Secretary of War, and he says, this is not an Indian war. This is a Negro war. And that the plantation owners have duped the United States into going into a large slave catching expedition.
Okay.
And so this is why we say that the Second Seminole War, which lasted from 1835 to 1842.
So that's what, 7 years.
That's why I say it was the longest, deadliest, and costliest Native American, quote unquote, Native American war fought.
Now, let me ask you this. Where did the Native Americans, the Seminoles, get their guns and rifles?
They had been buying and trading with traders and with the Spanish for hundreds of years.
So they had pretty good artillery.
Yes.
Is there an estimate of how many people lost their lives in that war?
No, there's not a clear estimate of Native American loss. But by this time, there are at least 35,000.
And the black, they were kind of winning at times.
Oh, they were winning. That's the whole thing. In 1838, and here's a important thing. In 1838, the United States government says, all right, this is going on long enough. This is costing a lot of money. We'll put in the articles of capitulation. We'll say that the blacks can immigrate out west with their Native American allies, that they do not have to return to slavery.
And that's the start of the Trail of Tears.
Yes, that was part of the Trail of Tears for the Seminole Nation. Now, for blacks, though, that was victory. The clear objective and the main objective for the Black Seminoles was freedom. Not Florida, but freedom.
I got you.
So to go out west was something that they agreed upon. Their Native American counterparts didn't agree upon it, but they agreed upon it. So we see at this point in 1838, numbers of blacks began to stop fighting and go out west to live free to the Arkansas Territory, which is present-day Oklahoma.
Right. All right, let me ask you, is there, as we come to a close, is there a particular point that you want to make some point of how resilient Black people were, or why people don't know this story, anything like that?
This is a story that should be told as Black resistance. This is a story that should be told as a Black slave rebellion.
I got you.
Wrapped up, is enclosed within the Native American story, but it is really a Black story. Like I said, the General Jessup himself even recognized it as a Negro war and not a Native American war. So the Black story has been overshadowed by the Native American story. And one of the reasons that being is because even the leader of the Native Americans at that time, Osceola, utilized primarily Black warriors. It gets overshadowed by the Native American story within the context.
I got you. I got you. Have you written a book on this, or something that people can follow you, a website that you have?
Yes, I've written a book. The name of the book is Florida's Negro War.
Okay. And how do people get a copy of your book?
It is on Amazon.
And do you happen to have a website yourself?
Yes, www.profaedixon.com.
All right, everybody, I told y'all this guy is bad. He's a strong brother, man. He found one of them stories that I know they didn't teach much of, and how them Black people said, man, I'd rather die than be a slave again. That was really the mission, wasn't it?
Oh yes, that was the mission, to retain their freedom and continue to maintain freedom for their children.
Man, I love it. And then we're going to stop there only because I got other videos that pick up the Trail of Tears with actual Seminole Indians. Everybody watch those videos on the channel. Read his book. How about, you don't have a copy of the book right there you can show us, do you?
No, I'm sorry. I left it in the other room.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to put it on the website, and we're going to follow this brother. We're going to let people know to come hear him speak on this story. He's a PhD, wrote a dissertation, a smart dude. He's a smart dude. Everybody, this is what I do with strong inspirations. I find these people and I let them tell it. And then I just ask a couple questions so I can make sure I'm clear. And I'm clear on what he has told us. Hope you clear too. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button on this video because you've been inspired. I have. Hit the notifications bell. Tell somebody about strong inspirations. Watch my movie, read my book. Any last parting words?
Yes, again, I just want to leave the name of the book again, since I didn't bring it with me. Florida's Negro War.
Florida's Negro War. I love it. Everybody, let's read that book. and I'm gonna put it on the website. Let's blast him out. Thanks again for being on the channel, my man. And I want to say to you with all sincerity, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love that you find these stories and you sharing them, you write about them. You a jewel out of Fort Valley, Georgia. Everybody down there know you and proud of you, as we are here. So with that, I say, bye-bye, we out.